Sad news to address, a trade to go over, and a little update on our Sabres Super Draft and your opportunity to vote and get involved with our show here coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. First show in a few days here, which means I do want to talk a little bit about RJ. I want to talk a little bit about Rick Jeanneret passing away on Friday night and my experience coming up, but also I want to go through the Ilya Lyubushkin trade. The Sabres sending away one of their defensemen over the weekend or earlier this week, and I thought it was a little interesting as to the timing and the value of it. So we'll go through that, and then an opportunity for you to get involved in our Sabres Super Draft. Stay tuned for that a little bit later on in today's show as well. We'll start with RJ, though. And as I record this show, the Sabres are actually just announcing I could throw it up on our stream here on YouTube. By the way, again, check us out on YouTube, wherever you may be listening. You can watch us, too. So the Sabres sent out a press release that Rick Jeanneret, is going to – let me see if I can get this to work on my stream. Sorry. But anyways, Rick Jeanneret's a roundtable remembrance for him is going to take place at KeyBank Center on Sunday, August 27th at 5 o'clock. Alumni, broadcasters, like I know Dan Dunleavy, of course, will be the MC for this event. Brian Duff, I'm sure, and Marty Baron will be involved. But plenty of Sabres alumni. Rob Ray, I can't imagine, won't be. So I don't know the full list of alumni, but, I mean, don't you have to imagine? It's just a guess. And, if people got things going on, I almost don't even want to throw their names out there just to to make it seem like it's a problem if they're not there. But don't you think Brad May's probably going to be there? Iconic Mayday call. Pat LaFontaine, for instance, is another one. I don't know. We'll see who ends up going there, but the Sabres are giving tickets, general admission, free to the public. The event will also be aired on MSG and will stream live on the Sabres social media, so you can get your ticket at sabres.com. So that's happening. It was referenced in the release that they sent out that RJ and his family did not want a full public memorial service. And, you wish, everyone would have the opportunity. I guess this is it, right? They're giving fans the opportunity to give him respect and, but to have, one last day of celebration for Rick Jeanneret. But, that's how he was, right? Like, he didn't want all the fanfare. He didn't, they had to kind of talk him into having RJ night. I'm glad they did, because it gave all fans the opportunity to tell him how much he meant to everybody, while he was still with us. And that night, as you think back on it, it's just a March night against the Nashville Predators. They're out of a playoff race. The building had been pretty empty all year long. The fans were starting to come back, but to what extent? Like 12, 13,000 a night. And then RJ night. Here, we're putting him up in the rafters. This is the night to celebrate him. Everyone showed up. Packed the building. There wasn't an empty seat in the house. The Sabres did an incredible job with the ceremony. The Sabres won the game. We talked to Alex Tuck on Friday, and Tuck said in the locker room that, like, everyone wanted to run through a wall for him, even if they didn't, know as much about RJ as Tuck did, for instance. Tuck grew up a Sabre fan, 05, 06, 06, 07, right in the sweet spot. So of the black and red era. So he knew what it meant, and, the players knew enough to what it meant to pull that game out, treat it like a playoff game. They won it late, and they were able to bring RJ out on the ice for that last standing ovation against the Nashville Predators. So amazing and grateful, right, that night was able to happen while he was still with us. And it was Friday, was super emotional. Hosting on WGR, just hearing from fans and hearing from all the former, whether it's Dan Dunleavy or if it's Pete Weber, now voice of the Nashville Predators, who worked with RJ way back when, or if it was Marty Baron, or if it was Tuck, for instance, Don Granato and Kevin Adams, members of the current organization. Everyone with the same thing to say about Rick, that no one ever had a bad word about him. No one ever had a bad word about him. I would, I don't think there's any debating this. He's the most universally beloved figure in Buffalo sports history. Like, everybody's got some detractor out there, right? Like, there are guys that don't like people that don't love Jim Kelly for whatever reason. There are people, that don't love who? Maybe Gilbert Perreault's not that, but Hasek because of the way he left. I don't know. Nobody in the world has a bad word to say about Rick Jeanneret. Nobody. Sunday, August 27th, 5 p.m., KeyBank Center. The memorial is up. The giant RJ letters are outside KeyBank Center, flowers being placed there. They've got a loop of the RJ clips, playing outside the arena, which is a really good touch, I think, as well. Yeah, it was definitely emotional night and day for me, because that's my idol. I mean, that is the guy that I really, I'm not doing. A couple other times, I'm sure, in passing, and just funny, right? Like the one-liners in the elevator of the Sabres, of the Sabres press room. A lot of people would be able to tell you stories about that. Mine's not great, it's just him kind of going, tough one, during the Sabres tank season. And that probably happened a lot, but he was great. He was unbelievable. The all-time Sabre, if you ask me, and I don't even think it's close. All right, time out here. When we come back, all right, well, a little bit of hockey. What happened with the Ilya Lyubushkin trade? Why did the Sabres decide to do that? And then an opportunity for you to get involved in our Sabres Super Draft coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by Athletic Greens. AG1, the number one thing that you can do for your health every morning. AG1, I gave it a try. You have a couple of different ways you can do it. You can make the shakes. You can put little drops in your water or your coffee. The shakes taste really good, but if you're on a rush, you throw the drops in and you get all 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals. Right now, AG1, it's under $3 a day. Pretty good if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with high-quality source ingredients. It's a win-win. AG1 replaces your multivitamin, probiotic, and more in one simple drinkable habit. AG1 helps you build your health foundation first, raising the standard for quality in the supplement category. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Check it out. Welcome back to the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase at Sneaky Joe Sports to follow me on Twitter. The Sabres making a move this week, trading away Ilya Lyubushkin to the Anaheim Ducks for a 2025 fourth-round pick. What does a 2025 fourth-round pick mean? Nothing. It's not that valuable at all. I would not expect that player to ever become an NHLer. Your odds are under 10% that player ever makes the NHL. Now, to be honest, the greatest value of that fourth-round pick might be the perceived value of the fourth-round pick. The Sabres could spin that fourth-round pick around at the trade deadline for some third or fourth line forward that can help them, or for some backup goaltender. I don't know. That to me is the most valuable you get for the 4th round pick. To me, the trade of Lyubushkin to Anaheim is not about the pick. It's about doing right by Lyubushkin. To me, that's it. The Sabres have a lot of defensemen. Right now, if you go through who their options are for opening night, 6 defensemen will be in the lineup, right? And let's say, for sake of conversation, everybody's healthy, and I'll do this exercise as though Lyubushkin was still on the team. You've got Dahlin and you've got Samuelson. That's 2. You've got Power and you've got Connor Clifton, who you signed from Boston. That's 4. You've got Henry Jokiharju and Eric Johnson. I'm already at 6, and I haven't mentioned Riley Stillman. I haven't mentioned Ilya Lyubushkin. I haven't mentioned Jacob Bryson. I mean, the Sabres have so many NHL defensemen, had so many. Someone had to go. And really, none of those guys at the bottom of the lineup, except potentially Henry Jokiharju, were going to have any value. In a perfect world, yeah, maybe you trade Jokiharju away and see if you can recoup a 2nd round pick. But otherwise, Lyubushkin being the guy that goes, that's fine. I tend to think, the story of his season was injury. That early on in the year, he got hurt and he was never really able to get to his highest level of play. He started to at the end of the year. If you look at the last couple of months of the Sabre season, Lyubushkin, in some of the advanced stats, was actually one of their better defensemen in the last 2 months of the season as the health had returned. And that was even with the hitting going away. The hitting was supposed to be his big thing, and that really never, flourished with the Sabres. Did a little bit early on in the season, then he got hurt, and it kind of went away. So I do think Lyubushkin had better results in him than what he showed last year. And that's why, I would have been interested to see if he could do it this coming season. But there's too crowded. There's too many. How many games are we going to play? 30 games if everybody was healthy in a rotation with Stillman and Jokiharju or Stillman and Johnson. I don't know. So you get something, even though it's not much at all. Fine. Give the guy an opportunity. Do right by the player. It's a good job by the Sabres, I guess, to do right by the player. We'll always have the Tampa game. We'll have that Lyubushkin moment. There might only be one Lyubushkin moment, but 6-5 overtime winning breakaway against the Tampa Bay Lightning and a comeback victory. One of the most stunning overtime heroes in Sabres history. Maybe the most stunning overtime hero in Sabres history. It's a great highlight, and in 10 years, it's going to be an incredible trivia question to ask people, who won that Sabres Lightning overtime game? Who was the defenseman that scored shorthanded, by the way, 4-on-3? And it'll be Ilya Lyubushkin. So Lyubushkin to the Ducks. The Sabres blue line becomes a little bit more clear. I think they could very well be done. I mentioned those 6 guys that would factor into the lineup. Riley Stillman being your 7th defenseman. Jacob Bryson being your 8th that maybe you can send down to Rochester. I think that's fine. All right, timeout here. And when we come back, our Sabres Super wrapped up. Go through the teams real quick and tell you how you can get involved with our show coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are brought to you by Bird Dogs. Oh, love Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs make you look good. Bird Dog stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of that stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fix this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs uses anti-stink, sweat, wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. If you missed our most recent episodes, check them out. We did our Sabres Super Draft, myself, Lucas Buckley, and Joe Marino from the Cautiously Optimistic podcast. We built our teams, and now it's time for you to vote. Go to our Twitter at Locked On Sabres, and you could vote for who has the best team between the 3 of us. We have our little side bets on the side for who has the best team. And early results, I just put the poll up right before we got going with the show. Only 80 votes in. I have a slight lead, but only by 1% over Joe Marino and then Lucas Buckley in 3rd. And if you need a reminder of what the teams looked like that we drafted, starting with Team Luke. He went French Connection at the top. I got the graphic up on our YouTube if you're interested in looking. It's available on our YouTube channel. Looking at his team overall, Lucas's team with the French Connection up top, that's going to be the headline. The way I see his team is it's got an incredible top six, arguably the best center group down the middle. Perreault, Briere, Tage Thompson, Stu Barnes. That's about as good as you're going to do. But to me, he is the weakest when it comes to the blue line. Campbell's great. Love Jeanneret. Everyone else after that, I think, when it comes to all-time Sabres, he's going to struggle a lot. Jason Woolley, Jay McKee, Richard Schmelik, and Tony Ludman. And he's definitely third among the goaltending group with Tom Barrasso. So, love Lucas's forwards up top, but that's how I see his team. What about Joe Marino's team? All right, Hasek. Hasek's going to give you a shot any day of the week. And arguably, if you have the first pick, you might just be the best team. If you have Dominic Hasek, that might be all you need. And he did a pretty good job catching up. First line of Pierre Turgeon, Danny Gare, and Alex McGillney. But I really think where Joe falls short is that center group. Hasek's the best goalie. He's got Phil Housley, who I think is arguably the best defenseman. And then some good wingers. Alex McGillney, Danny Gare. Like, the Sabres are so deep through their history with wingers that he was able to make up for it there. He did not make up for it. He did not compete to me with me or Lucas when it comes to centers. Pierre Turgeon, Dale Hawerchuk, Michael Pekka, Paul Gaustad. Not a bad group whatsoever, but I do think it's the third best center group of the three. My team, I'm biased, of course. I got the team I pretty much wanted. But I will admit, I waited a lot on forward. I'm definitely third when it comes to the forwards. In fact, I didn't like a lot of the wingers that were available there. So I started throwing some centers around. I threw Ryan O'Reilly on the wing. I threw Don Luce on the wing. I threw Dylan Cousins on the wing. But I love my center group. I believe I have the best center group with Pat LaFontaine, Chris Drury, Jack Eichel, and Tim Connolly. If you can get past your Jack Eichel hate. By the way, I'm making Jack Eichel number 15. For some reason, I don't know. It looks a little less hateable when the number 15 is next to Jack Eichel than the number 9. And then I love my blue line. I think it's on par as the best with Mike Ramsey, Rasmus Dahlin, Jerry Korab, Jim Schoenfeld in the top 4. And then I got Ryan Miller, and I think having him is the second best goalie in this thing was important for me to get. So I like my team a lot. I'm narrowly winning the poll at this moment in time. Love to hear your thoughts on it. On our YouTube channel, on our draft shows, had one common opinion that I think was a miss, honestly, by me, Lucas, and Joe. We didn't draft Bill Haight. Bill Haight is not a name in the rafters. Bill Haight, I'm not even sure if he's in the Sabres Hall of Fame. He's not a flashy name. A lot of Sabre fans of my age probably don't even know who he is. But that was an all-time Sabres defenseman that we just completely missed on. He played from 73 to 87, 14 years with the Sabres, 854 games, 320 points. Like, he had 20 to 30 points a bunch of times. But just a big, physical, stay-at-home defenseman that was, playing big minutes for the Sabres when they were going to the Stanley Cup final and then competing into the late 70s. So that was a miss. If I could go back in time, I would definitely put him on my team if I could. So yeah, Bill Haight. I saw all your comments, and I definitely think you're right that's a guy that deserved to be drafted. And hey, give us a little bit of a break. Our average age between the three of us is like 26. So the fact that we really only missed on one guy from the old days, I think is an okay job. All right, at Sneaky Joe Sports, at Locked On Sabres, if you want to vote on our poll for who has the best team between the three of us. That's it for us. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.